dimensional mirror. And this is a house that's bigger on the inside. And this, well, that's just a big crafting table, obviously. And today we're going to be looking at the craziest illusions that are possible in Minecraft. And as the video goes on, we'll start off with the simple brain twisters and build up to the real mind-bending stuff at the end of the video. And with this jar of jelly beans just doesn't match up. But hey, it's impressive nonetheless. Fear of the dark is pretty common, and fear of the unknown is even scarier, which is why this might be such an ominous sight. See, here we have the illusion of emptiness made up from building 4 walls of unlit black concrete like so. And the result is something that looks a lot more like the void than the actual void in the game. And I think this perfectly goes to show that what you can't see is infinitely more spooky than what you can. So if you're looking for a new tunnel for your next haunted house, this might be the pick come Halloween. Now, while map art can do a lot of great things, animation isn't one of them. And usually to get that effect, we need to use some extensive command blocks or redstone to make it happen. But with this illusion, if you focus in on it, I'm sure you can notice that it's already in effect. What's happening here is that by trying to focus on the lines between the ovals, the image starts to look wavy, which is more than a little disorientating. But it could be a great piece for your art gallery, and as long as no one gets sick, it's well worth that. Figuring out how to start building your Minecraft dream home can be a real challenge, but when your house works like a fever dream, then that might be on the right track. At first glance, all that's visible is this tiny house, but on the inside, you'll see a much larger picture. You see, if we lay out the viewing angle just right from this entrance, we can give the illusion of a much larger house inside the little shack. And even if it becomes less convincing once we walk around, from the right view, it's still a real sight to see. Now, if you scroll through your YouTube recommended, you've likely seen this illusion show up in a thumbnail once or twice. So, let's break down how it works. See, what's happening here is that if we place 3 sea lanterns like so in the corner of a room, it'll give the illusion of a weird rotating cube. And that's a strange sight from most any angle that you stare at it. But hey, now you know how it's done, and as long as your friends don't, this could still offer up a solid practical joke to put to use. After a while of playing with your friends, it can get tough to impress them, but building up a full netherite beacon should do the trick. Though, getting all the netherite to make that happen is actually a tough hurdle to cross. So instead, what if we want to make this happen for a fraction of the price? Well, using this method, we can make it seem like we're the richest on the server, when in fact, we're barely cutting it. But hey, as long as they don't snoop around the other side, this should be fairly convincing. And that could earn us the respect that we're looking for. Okay, so you've probably heard of the Headless Horseman, but what about the Bodiless Steve? See, after placing down some path blocks, we can throw a pig inside a minecart, hop on, and ride into the floor like so, with only our head to poke out of the top of the path, which can either startle your friends, or lend to the weirdest game of soccer yet. And whichever option you choose, just make sure not to dismount the pig while you're down there. Otherwise, you'll go from an awkward situation into something a lot more uncomfortable. In a game made of cubes, getting a convincing circle is a tough concept, but with a mix of cleverly placed stairs and blocks, you can start to get a pattern like this. And to go a step further, by using a mix of item frames and torches, we can use this command to place seemingly illegal decorations on the grid. So while you might have to trust the process to pull this off, the end result is nothing short of mind-bending. And if anything, it's just weird to finally place torches on a stair block. It just doesn't look right. To many in the community, the Aether Portal is something of a white whale to see, and I'm sure many of us were disappointed to see it fail like this when we tried. But with Bedrock, we might have ourselves a solution, or at the very least, a workaround. Apparently, when utilizing waterlogged stairs and blocks like so, we can strategically set up some floating water inside the glowstone frame. And then, even after we break the pistons and stairs, the water will remain inside our new Aether Portal. Just remember, it'll disappear once you reload the world. If you've ever felt like someone's watching you, then you know it's a creepy concept. And this example should bring out those same feelings. See, as you move around the head, the eyes will track you like so. Or at least, that's what you'd think. Because with some extra depth, the redstone can move along the black background for a scary sight. And we can see something similar with this Guardian statue. Except here, it's made using a tunnel and map art. But even when you do know how they work, it's hard to say they're not effective. Or at the very least, unsettling. Living in a desert has its benefits, but lush greens just aren't one of them. And seen as leaves we bring here will desaturate the biome's color map, our garden looks a little bland. Or it would be if it weren't for azaleas. See, when we shear the leaves off an azalea tree and place them down in another biome, they don't change color with the location, meaning we can have the illusion of fresh trees growing right out in the desert. And while your friends wonder why their oak trees look worse than yours, they'll have quite the oasis to see. Now, I'm usually not a big fan of heights, but this seems too good to pass up on. If you were to look down from this angle, you'd notice quite the view down below. But it turns out that's just another fake. And rather, this user took the time to fill out multiple maps of the surrounding area and then stitch them together to make this, which makes for a much cooler floor than what we're used to. And that way, even if it looks like we're way up in the clouds, we can still experience it all from the comfort of the ground floor. Minecraft Minecraft blocks come in one shape and size. That is, until today. See, by using distance and a clever stair-step-like build, we can make it seem as if the block that we placed is actually quite small. In this way, we practically guarantee that any visitors will be left with a question mark as to how it works. But besides a prank, you might actually find yourself using this on a larger scale. And really, we'll leave the finer details of that to you. But I will say, this could make for a real mind-bending entrance to your next base. The death and loading screens are a staple of Minecraft, and they're so commonplace that, by this point, no one's surprised by them. But we can use that to our advantage. Taken after this user, we can make a giant version of the respawn screen in our creative world. And with the help of map art, we can make this even more convincing. Then, after we place these down at spawn, we can fool anyone who respawns into seeing yet another respawn screen when they least expect it, letting us watch from the sidelines and get quite the laugh while we're doing it. Mirrors are something that we still haven't seen added to the base game, and while we could use a mod, there's another solution in vanilla. See, as this user shows, if we make a mirrored version of our build like so, and then place glass in the middle, between the two, we get that mirror effect that we wanted, which is cool to see, even if it does take double the time to build. Though if you have world edit commands, those might help to speed this up. But even if it is a burden to make, the results won't go underappreciated. When you see a grid like this, your first instinct is probably a game of chess or checkers, but that's not what we'll see today. But instead, if we strategically place our crafting tables, we can take after this user and make it seem like one is much bigger than the other, which seems like nonsense at first. But the way that we do this is that when you build these, the squares must be 2 by 2 for each one. And then that way, when one crafting table is placed on the ground, the other can be placed 4 blocks into the air to give us the illusion of size. For a fairly standard house, this is one that we've got our eye on. Or more appropriately, it's got its eye on us. You see, when utilizing a bit of depth on the side of the roof and some black material here, something of a face starts to appear, which is quite a surprise for sure. And while you might not be able to see what's happening from the front, we can catch a bit of a smolder from the side. And even if that doesn't hold a candle to the rock himself, it could make for some pretty solid real estate. Pranking your friends is a rite of passage on a multiplayer server. And hey, we're plenty guilty of that as well. So to give them a run for their money, why don't we hit them where it hurts? Their diamonds. See, by using a few item frames and map art, we can create a pretty convincing diamond ore. Or at least convincing from this side, since when you walk around to the other end, it's proven fake. And by that logic, we can make just about any decoy block in the game that we dream of, which offers quite the surprise if you ask me. Now, as far as Minecraft's concerned, circles are a rare sight, but once again, the community has found a way to make them happen. You see, when placing down glazed terracotta in a circle like so, and filling in the corners with diorite, we can see a perfect circle come out of the blend. And while it's an illusion that may take a second for you to see, if you squint, it becomes quickly noticeable. And that way we get both a circle and an abstract piece as well, which is a win for both if you ask me. If you're falling from a great height, water is the all-star pick for safety, and we can use that idea to our favor. See, if you're looking to get even with someone on the server, this water illusion is a solid candidate to do so. As you'll notice, by making several custom maps with the water designed like so, we can make a convincing spot for them to land on. Only once they aim for that puddle, we'll just break their legs on a couple of item frames, and that should be a rude awakening for sure. Walking through walls sounds like quite the superpower to have, but doing that without glitches should be impossible, or it was until this user's discovery. See, by using these immersive portals, we can give off the illusion of walking through a solid mirror. And while pulling this off might require some prior knowledge of the mod in question, as long as you light the portal properly and add in the glass, we can still walk through as planned, letting you trade places with yourself and likely leave a group of confused bystanders when you do, which is well worth trying out, trust me.